We've looked at a couple of cases for what types of slope you'll have. Well, as soon as you can have a positive slope, a negative slope, a zero, and then lastly we have something called an undefined slope. So that's what these problems are going to show you. And remind yourself that as you do these, do not expect to be told this is going to be positive, negative, undefined, or zero. The expectation will be that you'll be able to just look at a couple points and then figure out whether or not it is positive, negative, and all that. On your own, go ahead and graph these 2 points and draw the line through them, and go ahead and label them for this one too. Well, what you have here is a vertical line, and if you were to look at the graph of a vertical line, you could immediately say, well, the slope is undefined. And we're going to see why that is. Same as before, rewrite the formula. M is the change in y over the change in x, so I'll write y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x sub 1. Plugging in the values, I'll do 3 minus a negative 2 over, and then since we do want to keep the same order, we'll do that one minus the other one. All right, 1 minus 1. If you remember from previous sections, you cannot divide by 0. So when I turn these 3 minus a negative 2 into pluses, and I get 5 over 0, as soon as you see a 0 here, you'll know that it is undefined. For this problem, make a little note, can't divide by 0. And then put an equal sign. Well, just write undefined. You obviously wouldn't have to write can't divide by 0 every single time. You wouldn't have to do that. But you would tell us that the line is undefined. And there's a way to remember this too. You know, like I was shown this by a past math teacher. I thought it was kind of nice. If I have a positive slope, well, I can place an egg on it or whatever. Negative, same thing. But if I wanted to think of just the fraction part, like if I have 0 over 5, and if this were an egg, the egg would be happy. So it would be a 0 slope. As opposed to if I had a 0 in the denominator, then my egg is going to fall, crack, and spill out the yolk. And so, you know, if somebody saw that and they thought it was helpful, so some people have a nice time remembering, well, if I got an egg down here, it's going to break, so therefore it has to be undefined. But the real truth behind it is, like, imagine an incredibly small number. So if I were to take any number, it doesn't matter how big it is, and I were to start dividing by incrementally smaller numbers like 0.1, I would actually get 50. And then if I divide it by 0.01, I'd get 500, and so on. But what happens is, as you get closer and closer and closer and closer to 0, this value explodes towards infinity, and so it just doesn't work out with math. It's undefined, and as you come from the positive side, it would be positive infinity. As you come from the negative side, it would be a negative infinity. So there's all kinds of cool reasons. All right, I think this one's going to be a totally on your own one. Graph it, plot it. I'm only going to put the math up in a second. Here I am. I got this going to that direction, this going that direction. You know, if you always start in the same reverse direction on these, you'll form a habit to where it's just done the same way every time. And then lastly, write undefined. You wouldn't have to evaluate that. And the other thing too is most of the time you're allowed to use a quiz on certain quizzes. I'm allowed to use a calculator on quizzes and tests. So if you just type these in, you'll be good. Do one more for practice. Hey, guess what? It's undefined. It should work out. You've also seen what happens when you subtract a negative. So I don't think I need to show anything for this one. You guys are on your own for that. So pause it, get caught up, finish it. As we do a little graphic organizer, get a ruler out and make 1, 2, 3, 4 neatly drawn lines. Neatly drawn graphs. Get those arrows on there too. And then as you go in, well, one thing that can happen is you could have a positive slope. You could also have a negative slope. It might be a good idea to show this in a different color just so it stands out more to you. Then we have a slope of 0, this is totally okay. That's where if I placed the egg there, it would not crack. And then lastly, you would have an undefined slope. So just, these don't have to be a specific location. We're not worried about x-intercepts or y-intercepts. But this is a nice, quick little snapshot. Everything organized in one place to show you the 4 separate cases you'll have with a linear equation. That's it for this video. There's going to be 1 or 2 more.